Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'll be breaking down these three previous graphics I've made on my live streams. As always, there will be a two-letter combination just for these videos, just because there are breakdowns, so I'm expecting them to be shorter. And if you've missed my previous live streams, make sure to tune in when I'm live streaming next, usually every 2 days or so. But yeah, see yous and let's get into it. Once again, in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down how I made all these graphics here on stream. Again, if you've watched the stream and you interacted with the stream and you want these PSDs, please just flick me a message and I'll drop you the PSDs. However, if you didn't watch the stream, please just watch the entire video. The combination of two letters, just because these graphics have already been made, will be spread throughout the entire video. It's just a shorter one, so let's get straight into it. We'll start with this KSI graphic. At the time, this was made before he lost, Mr. Jake Paul lost to Tommy Fury. So let's work start to finish, as always. What I've done is I've just increased the exposure for our overall camera raw filter, just a little bit on the texture and clarity side of things. I didn't want too much. Just increased the grain by 10, and a little bit of a vignette on the sides, just because I had some darkness here. So I just wanted the light to be more coming from the behind. And as we can see, that's reflected on the two images here. Next, what I did is I added a 9.3 color lookup from Ethan J Design, and as we can see, I just kind of drew those purples into the color that I was kind of getting from the vibe. So I took the pink from Jake's previous outfit when he fought, whoever he fought last before Tommy Fury, I can't remember, I don't really care. And then the pink as well, pinkish kind of purple from JJ. So next, what I've done here is, as you can see, there's a hell of a lot of layers here. All I did was chucked a noise kind of layer over the top and a dust kind of layer, and then at the bottom we can see there's a bunch of sponsors logos from JJ as well as Jake as well, and as well then just tucked the DAZN logo and MF Boxing logo up the top, just because I figured it'd probably land on a Misfits card. Obviously it's going to be in Cardiff Principality Stadium if the fight ever does go ahead after Jake's loss. And then as we can see, there's a bit of smoke. I just wanted the smoke to be kind of reflecting the front, so the legs were kind of hidden. I went for a kind of like purpley dark color on this, and then I got the effect I was going for. As we can see here, we're already starting on a hue saturation layer. What I've done here is I've just got that purple and really smallly outlined the sides of where I expected the purple to be coming from, just because we've got a lot of it on the image. I was going to go with an eye effect for Jake, but just because of how low quality the image was, I wasn't too bothered. But I did black and white his eyes out. And we can see the shadowing done to the bottom, just to mask where the black was coming from here. And I did my usual color correcting process of just going over everything. So chucking my opacity down to around 20% for my brush, and then going over the whites and the blacks, and then adding shadow at the bottom for both of them. And again, I repeated that process on the left image for JJ, just putting a color lookup of 3-strip on for him. It just didn't really work the best for Jake, however. For my text, I went with Tamina font. I started off with black and then moved this one to a bold, and then kept that bold with a kind of goldish kind of effect for the backing image. To separate the two images, I chucked a gradient fill on the back of it, but then put a layer mask on it, and then just used my normal gradient tool to push the brush up, and then chucked another gradient fill behind with black and transparent to kind of get this darkened effect in the background, and then drew over the sky effect, which I took from my previous UCL graphics, just in the background, and then slapped that on color. For the camera raw filter, I went for these two JJ and Jake images. I just heavily increased the exposure, the contrast, the texture. I went all the way up, just because I was getting some really nice texture coming out of his face and forehead, and then chucked the sharpness up to around 40%. I didn't really want it too high. And as you can see as well, for JJ, I went pretty heavy on the color correction and as well as on the eyes. So all I've done here is I've made a solid color layer, and then just black and white out the side of the eyes, and then increase the exposure to match both eyes, just because I was getting a bit of darkness on the left eye and light on the right eye, and they didn't look too balanced. And then I repeated that process for Jake. So there we go, that's how I made this KSI one. So now let's move on to this Trent Alexander-Arnold one here. As you can see, it's kind of similar to the previous ones I've made, but I went pretty heavy on the post-camera raw stuff. I just knocked the temperature down a little bit just because I was getting too much yellow coming into the images and I wanted a bit more balanced color. Increased the exposure slightly, tiny little bit of the contrast, and I went a bit more heavy with the clarity, and I actually added a little bit of dehaze in now. With the grain kind of side of things, I didn't want too much, just a little bit, because I was looking for this card kind of texture, which you can see here, kind of cardish kind of looking thing, and then a little bit of vignette as well. For my texture side of things, I went pretty heavy with everything. As mentioned, there's a bit of grunge taken from my previous, one of my previous graphics. As you can see, just a little bit of grunge kind of stuff, paper, and then I added another Ethan J design lookup layer, and then a bit of an exposure burst, and lots of card kind of stuff. So a fabric texture, which you can see is this kind of seat looking kind of thing, paper, another paper one, and then what I've done for these textures is just added a burst of light at the top, 2 particles from Ethan J's texture pack, another exposure burst, some invert, just because I was getting some really nice colors, which you can take from, it's just an invert, so it's just inverting what I've got on the colors and then just playing around with the opacity. You put it down to around 1%, which it just increases the lightness. Added a little bit of brightness and contrast on the sides, just because I was getting some nice colors coming from this Trent here, and I was trying to balance these colors. Added my own color correction kind of thing over the top, and put the opacity down to around 30%, and had another Ethan J design texture layer over the top. The text I chose to use here was Better Bank. It's just a really nice kind of scribble kind of font, spray paint kind of font, and then I just put some outing on the outside. And in terms for the camera raw I went pretty heavy on trying to get the reds to match, so there's a bit of selective color going on, 3 strip, and then just all my other usual elements. I decreased the saturation slightly, made a S kind of curve, but increased the shadows and put out sharpness to around 30%. And as again, it's just a repeated process of doing my usual color correction. If you do not understand my usual color correction process, please drop me a message and I will make a proper tutorial explaining that. For the shadows, I just did use my normal shadow brush to go over this. However, with my smoke, I was getting some really kind of not nice colors. Having this on normal, it was too red. So I chucked this on overlay because I really kind of wanted that dark smoke and the smoke to be coming under the name and behind in the background. And again, I just repeated these processes for this Trent here. And again, I had to match the reds just because I was getting too dark kind of reds. So I slapped the reds on and then I got some really nice colors coming. As you can see, it's probably not the highest quality image, but that's all right. And then now we'll move to this Trent Alexander-Arnold one here in the background. And I'll talk through what I've done here. As you can see, if I get rid of hue saturation layer here, we can see the kind of green kit. So I added my hue saturation on my own and then just colored the kit in red. And if you've watched my previous tutorials, you probably recognize this back Trent image. It's taken from the UCL one. And again, in the background, I've just put in the same photo from the same UCL thing. And then just added in Better Bank with just Liverpool coming across it, chucked the overlay down, chuck the overlay layer style on and the opacity down, and the same sky layer. So now let's move on to the final one. This was just a bit of a fun one. Sydney FC media manager requested this. This is Jordan. He's one of the A-League's designers. I won't speak too heavy on this. Just put Better Bank font on Tamina Black, and then put in Tamina Demi, and then just did kind of like a wavy style in the background. Couple of photos of him. Some pretty heavy color correction, as we can see, like so. Heavy color correction. Chucked the A-League logo on the top right corner, his logo on the top left corner, and then just put some camera or filter on and a bit of color lookup layer. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, tell me what you want to see next. Thanks for your time. See ya.